Welcome to the Business Blast podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Wagner. This episode is brought to you by Authors Unite. Authors Unite makes the process of becoming a published, best-selling author as simple as sipping your morning cup of coffee. You can learn more about Authors Unite at authorsunite.com. Now, let's jump into the episode.
Good.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Blast podcast. I am your host, Tyler Wagner. Today I have Justin Taylor with us. He's an account executive at Higher Education. So welcome to the show, Justin.
Cool. Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. And we'll start off with the first question. So the first question I have for you is, what's the best story from your life that has an underlying valuable message?
Cool. So I was working for a startup in the UP of Michigan called Handshake. They're based out of San Francisco now. And I actually left there kind of suddenly to join a monastery. So like in that kind of adventure, I saw that like maybe I wanted to understand what it would be like to step away from all the things that I thought that I was, all the kind of like the business and the technology. That was kind of like, I felt very kind of confined by it. And so I like walked 37.5 miles, something like that, to this monastery, and spent a good amount of time there. It was a very kind of interesting experience for me, really kind of stepping away from a life that I was leading and kind of heading towards. And I guess the biggest message that I learned from that experience is that a lot of times we have this like romantic nature of what it would be like to get away or to be someone else or to step away from our experience. And one thing that I realized there, among many other things, was that you always bring yourself wherever you go. And so all the things that I thought I was going to step away from or get away from really kind of met me there in a very intense way. And I realized that if I was going to work through those things, I was going to be the best version of myself. It was not necessarily a monastic life that was going to be the solution. It was going to be facing those things head on, which kind of brought me back into the world that I'm in now.
I love that, man. Thanks for sharing that. The next question is what's the most valuable piece of information that we should know that's within your expertise or industry?
Yeah. So I've done a couple startups and small businesses in my lifetime. And one of the things that I've kind of learned from that is that if you can recognize that, as a leader or as a visionary, as someone that's starting something, that it's not on you to do it all yourself, it will take a lot of weight off of you. What I kind of mean by that is like, if you can recognize that people around you, like people will show up in your life that are willing to support you and give energy and want to see you have success and want to see you have success in the context of your own experience. And I noticed in the past, a lot of times I would really try to like do everything or hold that weight on my own shoulders. And so through my work as a founder, as a co-founder, as a kind of this entrepreneur lifestyle, I've kind of really recognized that it's really important to see who's around you, what they bring to the table, what they're trying to achieve, and kind of give those things focus through, vision. And that's a really great way to see your vision come into the world, but also a way to give people around you a sense of purpose. And I think that's like, to me, that's like a really good quality of leadership. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, man.
Cool.
And what's your best piece of overall business advice, so not necessarily industry specific?
Things take time. Honestly, like I feel like I'm a very urgent kind of person, and so I would also often like kind of mark myself as feeling successful or unsuccessful based on how much time things took. And so I've kind of over the years learned patience and the importance of waiting for right times and right opportunities to kind of bring things into the world. And so that's kind of like a general piece of advice, right? Like it's okay to wait. It's okay to respond to the world around you. and that things do take time. So I feel like a lot of times we have a pressure to be successful or to be really, really rich or be, a name right now. But if you want to build a following, if you want to build a company, if you want to, have financial success, all those things take a lot of time and maybe a little bit of luck. But waiting, responding, and then stepping into opportunity is something that's really important.
And if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
Probably like, hey man, it's okay. That sounds kind of like generic too, but like what I mean is like, I feel like younger Justin really, really carried a lot of weight on his shoulders and took things very seriously. I'm only 26 now, but I feel like I've kind of recognized that this is all learning and it's all very iterative. And so whether you're right or you're wrong, or you win or you lose, or you're successful or you fail, right? Like those things are very formative either way. And so, like it's okay. It's kind of just some advice I would give to my younger self and maybe a little bit of a hug too.
I love that answer. Thank you, man. And then in your opinion, what's the key to happiness?
I think the key to happiness is not always wanting happiness. I don't think that happiness is like this constant state that you can be in. I think that happiness comes, and so does sadness, and so does, anger, or so does stress, and all those things motivate us differently. They're very like biological. They're very like neurological. And if we're always looking for happiness, then it's really hard to recognize it when it is there. And when it is there and then it leaves, it leaves a sense of dissatisfaction. So what I would say is like, like the key to happiness is like, okay, hey, it's there. You have it. Awesome. But don't think that it has to be your entire experience because, sadness can be inspirational or pain can be inspirational or stress or frustration or nervousness. Those things can all really kind of drive us to be successful in different ways. And so I think that's something very special, right? Like recognize happiness when it comes, but don't think that it has to be your entire, being.
And what's the best book that you've read, and what was the number one thing you learned from that?
So I have two favorite books, but I'll probably focus on I'll pick one. Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's just a really great book, probably like less than 250 pages. So I would really recommend everyone to read that. And they have this scene at the very, very, very end where he's kind of like looking at the river and he realizes that he hears all these different voices. So the people he met in his past and all of his past experiences, and they're all in this steady stream. And he comes to this kind of realization that, life is kind of like the river, like it just kind of flows on. And we get to be both caught in the flow, but sometimes we also get the opportunity to kind of watch the flow happen. And I think that both those experiences are really important. And reading that book kind of brought me into a sense of recognizing, okay, hey, I'm in a flow and I don't necessarily have control of where the river goes. It's just going to keep going, right? But also sometimes I have the opportunity to be beyond the river and see it in this entirety, or at least a portion of it, and watch that flow happen. And that's a really special experience too. And
All right, for everybody listening, we just have a little interjection. So that was a great answer, but it looks like he put me on hold.
Hey, can you hear me still? Is
Yep.
that cool?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. So yeah, you were talking about, or did you finish your answer there?
I don't know. I got a call right between. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. That makes the podcast more legit,
So I was just saying, in Siddhartha, there's in the book, the river, and he's kind of looking at it and hears these voices coming through. And I just kind of two messages. One is like, you're a part of this flow of life. And that's a really special experience. You kind of get this opportunity to be caught up and be a part of a very immersive experience that goes on beyond you and beyond everyone you may know. But also sometimes you have the opportunity to recognize that we're in this river or this flow. And, in that you can kind of be beyond that, and you get to see okay, hey, this is how we're all unified. So, Justin is having an experience, and also maybe has the ability to recognize that he is in an experience, and Tyler has an experience where he's creating this podcast or building this community, right? But he also maybe sometimes has the opportunity to step beyond that and recognize the people he's connecting or the audience that he's building. And, there's this river, there's this flow. And I feel like Siddhartha by Herman Hesse is a really great book that kind of gives you a lot of perspective on the stages of life. And that moment of the book where he really sees the river hit home for me.
And what is your favorite quote and why?
Cool. Let me actually saved a quote for this very moment. Different book though. So this book is for is from Ender's Game, which is my other it's just a really awesome book by Orson Scott Card. And he has a line that it says perhaps it's impossible to wear an identity without becoming what you pretend to be. And I think that that's such a powerful quote, because I think a lot of times we kind of have a mix, right? We want to be something that we're not yet, and we have this sense of what we are that we both like and don't like. But that makes our identity, and we're going to always kind of show up as that. And I think there's a really good opportunity in our lives and in our experience to say, okay, hey, this is the person I want to be. This is the mask I choose to wear, because a lot of times, we do wear masks and we do show up in different ways for different people or different experiences. But you can kind of choose that mask, choose that person you want to be, and bring that to any type of experience as often as possible. And sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's unconscious, but I think it's a really great opportunity to define that, say, hey, in this world, for me personally, I want to be a visionary person. I want to be a leader. I want to be a humanitarian. And so in all my experiences, how can I bring vision? How can I bring leadership? How can I be a leader? And how can I really have that human-centered approach? And that's the kind of, mask I hope I wear. And that's the kind of person I want to be in the world. And so I think that, that quote from Orson Scott Card in Ender's Game is really powerful, because there is a lot of power and potential in the mask that we wear, and how that affects both of ourselves and the people that we come in contact with.
Yes. Dude, thank you so much for coming on, Justin. The last question I have for you before we let you go is, where's the best place for people to find you online?
I have Instagram. It's Justin Joseph's Journey. And that's probably the best place to find me online. You can kind of connect with me there, DM, follow me, obviously. And I would love to kind of connect. I travel a lot, so if I'm ever in your city, I would love the opportunity to kind of connect and be with you.
Awesome, man. Thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Tyler.
The podcast you just heard was recorded with Anchor. If you want to make your own, download the Android or iOS app completely free from anchor.fm/podcast. That's anchor.fm/podcast.